All right, we're going to jump straight into this now. I've had about an hour and a half to think about these new cards. I don't cover the leaks on this channel. I don't like to cover leaks generally because leaks are things that have been announced that aren't supposed to be announced yet. You know, information that got out that the developers don't necessarily want to get out. And I'd like to potentially have a good relationship with Second Dinner for a long time. I want to keep making Marvel Snap content. So I'm not going to cover the leaks. So I haven't really looked at the leaks. So this is my first time looking at all of these cards. So let's get into it. I'm going to get most of these wrong, but it's going to be a little bit of fun. And I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. So do let me know. We're going to start with Luke Cage. 2 cost, 1 power. Ongoing, your cards can't have their power reduced. And immediately there is one card that this brings to mind as working well with, and that is Hazmat. So Hazmat is 2 cost, 1 power, and it's on reveal, give all other cards -1 power. Obviously, if you play Hazmat and you've got Luke Cage on the board, it's going to just decrease the power of your opponent's cards. I'm not going to lie, Hazmat is one of my favorite cards in Marvel Snap. I haven't used it recently because it really isn't that good at the moment, but playing Hazmat with Wong, with Lockjaw, and stuff like that, with Green Goblin and Hobgoblin is actually a lot of fun. So being able to play Hazmat in a world where it only affects your opponent's cards, that sounds really, really good to me. Is it going to be strong enough? I'm not sure about that. It's ongoing, so you could potentially be running a Spectrum type deal deck. It does only have 1 power, which is odd. You know, Luke Cage is a strong dude. So I find it a little bit strange that he only has 1 power, but still, you know, for that balancing reasons, that's fine. Your cards can't have their power reduced. I wonder what that means in terms of like, if you put a card in, say, Nidavellir. I'm sorry. Say you put a card there and it gains 5 power. So say you put Nightcrawler there and then you move Nightcrawler to a different location. Does Nightcrawler keep the 5 power because it can't have its power reduced back from 5 or back from 7 to 2? I don't know. Really interesting card though. It's the kind of card that could warp the meta if it turns out to be good with Hazmat. I'm excited. Moving on, Absorbing Man. Sorry, Ben Brode. I'm just going to mute that. On reveal, if the last card you played has an on reveal ability, this card copies it. So what I'm thinking with Absorbing Man is that it's going to be particularly strong in a deck that has the ability to ramp up your energy, because you can play it after. There are 2 cards that spring to mind as being particularly busted with Absorbing Man. The first is Odin. Obviously, Odin's effects, you've all seen it by now. It's like one of the most common cards in Marvel Snap because you get it so early. On reveal, activate the on reveal abilities of other cards at this location. So if you can wave or electro or cyclock an Odin out before turn 6, then you can jam Odin and then potentially play Absorbing Man the turn after to essentially jam a second Odin. The second Odin will proc the first Odin, which means everything will go off twice. If you've also played, say you played like Wong. In this location, you play Wong, then Ironheart, then Odin, and then Absorbing Man. The Wong will cause the Absorbing Man Odin to go off twice, which will cause the other Odin to go off 4 times, which it's going to be lots of on reveals. So in general, I think Absorbing Man is going to be strongest when it is copying the on reveal abilities that are more powerful. So it's going to be ideal to copy Odin, or sorry, the other card I wanted to mention that I think this is going to be particularly strong with is Arnim Zola, another 6 cost on reveal effect, which is particularly hard to pull off because it costs 6. And if you can wave it out, if you wave on 3, Arnim Zola on 4, and then you can Absorbing Man on 6, then you Absorbing Man, if that hits the Arnim Zola will go to summon to the other 2 locations where both of those Arnim Zola's abilities will go off, and it could be chaos. So I think that the Absorbing Man actually does have the potential to be really strong in any deck with any mana cheat. Speaking of energy cheat. Speaking of energy cheat, let's go over She-Hulk. She-Hulk costs 1 less energy for each unspent energy last turn. So, you know, turn 6... What I'm thinking off the top of my head is that She-Hulk works well with Sunspot. So, and the dream scenario I'm thinking of is you've got your Sunspot down, turn 5, you skip the turn 6, you play, you know what I'm gonna search for as soon as the website lets me, you play Infinite and She-Hulk for free. Except she's not gonna be free. The maths is wrong there. She'll only be free if you get like turn 7 or if you played Cyclock on turn 4, because On turn 5, she will be 5 energy cheaper. So no, not quite as straightforward as I was thinking there. I'm having to think about this on the fly now because that was wrong. Wave. She's really, really, really good with Wave. If you play Wave on turn 5, then on turn 6, she will cost the 4 because Wave will make her cost 4. But then because you've only spent potentially 3 energy on turn 5, she gets another 2 off. So she'll only cost 2, which means she can be played with another card on turn 6 because the other card will cost 2. So it will cost 4, and then 2 plus 4 is 6. So potentially, if you play Wave on 5 with no other cards, then She-Hulk can be played with any other card in the game on turn 6. She works pretty well with Death Wave as well, because in theory, you could still play Wave on turn 5, and you could play She-Hulk, and you could play Death, and you could play another card on turn 6. Really interesting mana or energy cheat here. Again, she's going to be really good with Sunspot. That's the natural synergy because she likes you to not spend energy, and Sunspot likes it when you don't spend energy. I think She-Hulk really does have the potential to be really strong. 10 power is not insignificant by any means. And so, you know, skipping turn 5 to play this and maybe even a 5-drop on turn 6, you know, you could say you drop this and Black Panther on turn 6, or this and Miles Morales and something that costs 4 as well. This, Miles Morales and Typhoid Mary on turn 6 sounds pretty devastating for your opponent. It looks like there's lots of ways you could squeeze in extra power here. And so that's really cool. Let's look at Titania. When any card is played at this location, this card switches sides. Right. How are we securing Titania? I guess if you can somehow... Okay, maybe it's weird for me to keep bringing up Cyclock as a card to think about, but a lot of these cards are just a heck of a lot better if you have one more energy to play with, which I guess is why they're balanced the way they are, because they're supposed to be balanced so that you don't have one more energy to play with. But if you say Cyclock turn 4, you could play Titania and Professor X on turn 5. Wait, would Titania switch sides before the lockdown activates or after? I don't know. There are so many unanswered questions and so many weird mechanic things. Titania has the potential of being pretty strong because worst case scenario, you're giving her to your opponent and actually clogging up your opponent's side of the board, preventing them from getting a full combo of 4 cards. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Titania is a really complex card, and it could go in any direction. It could be trash. It could be awesome. But I'm leaning towards it being awesome because I just think it's one of those cards that's weird enough where someone's gonna make something work out of it. Maria Hill, on reveal, add a 1-cost card to your hand. I'm gonna stop you right there. Go back to Luke Cage and ask you, why is Luke Cage a 1-power card and yet Maria Hill and Agent Coulson are 3 and 4 power cards respectively? Luke Cage, my boy got done dirty. Anyway, on reveal, add a random 1-cost card to your hand. I don't think that's going to be great. I mean, I guess it can be good in certain zoo type decks where you're playing Khazar and Blue Marvel and just trying to swarm as many things as possible. But a random 1-cost card, like, how often is that actually going to be good? How often is it going to give you a Squirrel Girl or something, or an Ebony Moore or something that you can't even play on that turn? I don't know. I'm not super optimistic for Maria Hill, but it's cool to have the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury's sidekicks in the game. And it's cool that they've got a similar flavor to Nick Fury. You know, Nick Fury grabs you 6-cost cards, Maria Hill grabs you a 1-cost card, Agent Coulson add a random 4 and 5-cost card to your hand. I think Coulson's a heck of a lot better than Maria Hill, just because you play Coulson, and if you don't have cards to play on the next 2 turns, Coulson gives you cards that will fit your curve perfectly for the next 2 turns. I think you could do some really interesting things with Maria Hill and Coulson. Like, you could play a deck that's just got big cards in and these guys, and then you use Coulson and Maria Hill to fill up the early game, and then you jam your expensive cards on turn 6. Could you play these and Nick Fury for a full-on shield deck with HeliCarrier as well? Maybe, I don't know. But I think Coulson's better than Maria Hill. Definitely has the potential to be pretty good. But they're not like, I don't think these 2 are as powerful as the previous cards that we've looked at. Like, I think all of the other cards until now have got real potential. I'm not quite as sure about these 2. HeliCarrier, the question is for HeliCarrier is it going to be as good as Apocalypse? Apocalypse, when you discard it, it gains more power and then goes back into your hand. HeliCarrier, when you discard this from your hand, add 3 random cards to your hand. How often are random cards actually good? I guess it's worth noting that HeliCarrier also does have 10 power. So in the case where you don't discard it, it is like a big card that's going to hit the board. So I guess you don't always have to discard it. It's really good with Lady Sif and Ghost Rider. It's actually, I didn't even think about that. It's really good with Ghost Rider and Lady Sif. Say you play Lady Sif. I should really show you these cards on screen, shouldn't I? So you play Lady Sif, discard the highest cost card from your hand. Then you play Ghost Rider. And you discard the HeliCarrier, which then gives you 3 random cards, which, you know, it's one of those cards is probably going to be quite useful, right? Or averages. Then you play Ghost Rider. On reveal, bring back one of your discarded cards. You get to, on turn 3, you get to play Lady Sif, which is 4 power. And then on turn 4, you get to play Ghost Rider. You get to play a 10 power card in addition to a 3 power card here. And you get 3 random cards in your hand in addition. Yeah, that's a really, really powerful combination of cards. HeliCarrier is going to be strong with that combo specifically. Let's look at M'Baku. If this card is in your deck at the end of the game, it jumps to a random location. The card that jumps out to me immediately with M'Baku is Lockjaw. And, you know, when you play a card here, swap it with a card of your deck, because that way, if you do draw M'Baku, you can just play it into your Lockjaw, throw it back in the deck. And then it's really good with Okoye as well. If you can play Okoye to buff M'Baku while it's in the deck, and then or buff it and then somehow put it back in, or Nakia to buff it in your hand, play it into your Lockjaw, summon Okoye to buff it in the deck, and then at the end of the game it jumps out. That does seem pretty powerful, and it's really cool that these Wakandan cards are all fitting in nicely together. Is M'Baku going to be extremely strong? I don't think so, but I think it has the potential to be okay, especially if there's more deck and hand buffing mechanics seeing play. Really interesting card though, really different, interesting design, and it's great to see Marvel Snap cards doing stuff a little bit differently. Let's look at Attuma. Oops, I've gone a little bit too far there. If you have another card here at the end of your turn, destroy this. You know what? Let's actually look at the next 2 cards together, because Attuma and Orca. Orca says ongoing +5 power here if this is your only card here. So Orca is literally exactly the same as Namor. It's just more powerful, which I think makes it worse. Well, it's interesting, because it on one hand, it is worse than Namor, because Namor goes up to 10 power and only costs 4. This goes up to 14 power and costs you 6, which you know, on paper straight up is just worse. However, when you look at it differently, where it's the final turn and out of nowhere you can just drop a 14 power bomb in any of the other locations, you know, suddenly it's as big as Gigantus, it's as big, or Giganto, it's as big as Agatha Harkness. That is considerable. And the fact that you can just play it out of nowhere and just win a lane on its own, a lot of the time when you're playing on the final turn, if you've got an empty lane on the right and I'm winning it by like 10, or no, say I'm winning it by 12 specifically, I'm not usually going to expect you to be able to play enough cards there in the final turn to take it over. So I might just ignore that lane for the final turn. If you just come out with Orca, just slam it down and suddenly win, that is significant. I guess it's worse than Namor when you just look at the numbers, but it's better when you look at the effectiveness of being able to play one card at the end and just dominate the location with it. You can even play Warpath as a bit of a debate in one of the other locations and pretend that you're not going to even try and win that lane, and then boom, just win it in the final turn. That seems pretty strong. Attuma is also very similar to Namor. In fact, it's almost identical to Namor, because they're both 4 power. And sorry, they're both 4 cost and 10 power, essentially, when they are the only card in the location. If you have another card here at the end of your turn, destroy this. I guess you just play it with armor. You just play it with armor and it's a better Typhoid Mary. So Attuma looks like it's pretty strong. Again, probably stronger than Namor, because you can play it on its own, or you can play it with armor, or you can play it with Professor X. Jamming Attuma on 4 and then Professor X on 5. Let's just bring up Professor X. Actually, this seems really, really busted. You play it on its own on turn 4 and then play Professor X on turn 5 to prevent it from being destroyed. That seems very, very strong. Yeah, I think both of these cards are actually going to be playable. Almost all of these, actually, I think all of these cards, except maybe Maria Hill, are looking playable so far. This is looking like a great set of cards. Now we move on to Series 5, Let's take a look at the first card here, Bast. On reveal, set the power of all cards in your hand to 3. So this is really interesting because it only costs 1, so you can play it on turn 1. And if you're playing a deck that has lots of weak cards or lots of 0 power cards in, then this gives them a big old buff. What's really interesting is you could play Bast with Cerebro and Mystique in Cerebro 3 deck to buff them up to 3 cost and make the whole thing a little bit stronger, a little bit more consistent. But you could also just play Bast with other weak cards like Angela and Bishop and Ironheart. You know, any of these cards, even Mr. Negative, it's great. You could play it with Mr. Negative. Any of the cards that have low power by default but do powerful things like those cards, they're going to benefit from Bast. I think Bast is definitely strong. It's just a 1-cost card. It's super easy to play. It's super easy to sneak it onto the board at any time. It's even good with Carnage and Venom. It's good with so many things. It's good with Hood. It's good with all sorts. You play Bast with any of these cards, it's going to be good. The fact that I've listed so many cards so quickly that the card's strong with makes me pretty convinced that it's going to be a strong card. Shuri, double the power of the next card you play. Hey, it's Shuri's Lab, the card. Yeah, I mean, it's Shuri, so of course it is. Shuri seems like she has the potential of being really good. The fact that she's 4 and the Black Panther is 5, it's also another synergy that sort of leans into itself. You can make a Black Panther deck just that little bit more consistent by, in addition to playing Wong, you could play Shuri. Imagine if you can play Cyclock on 2, Wong on 3, Shuri on 4, and Black Panther on 5 to double the double from Shuri and also double the double from Black Panther. Yeah, I feel like Shuri is one of those cards that it's either going to be really busted or no one's going to care about it, one or the other. The fact is, there are a lot of powerful 4 and 5 cost cards. You know, playing this before an Arrow, playing this before a Gamora, playing this before a Maximus or anything like that is going to be huge. A Red Skull. Shuri, it's another card that's going to be strong. Let's face it, these cards are all going to be strong. Let's talk about Thanos, the strongest card, right, in the game? Well, I don't know. At the start of the game, shuffle all 6 Infinity Stones into your deck. What did the Infinity Stones do again? I'm going to be honest. I have no idea how to assess Thanos. I have no idea if it's going to be strong or not. Card draw is a thing that we have a problem with generally in Marvel Snap. There's only really Adam Warlock that lets you, and Crystal that let you draw cards from your own deck. So Thanos shuffling stones that clogs up the deck, but also lets you draw other cards. Maybe you'll play that with Crystal or with Adam Warlock. So far, Thanos has been pretty trash because the only way you've managed to get it has been by a random effect, so you've not been able to play him and the Infinity Stones. I'm really interested in what Thanos is going to be like with the stones. As far as this one goes, no idea. Could be trash, could be awesome. I hope it's awesome, and if it is trash, I'm sure they'll balance it to make it awesome. Galactus, if this is the only card here, destroy all other locations. Okay, you've seen Galactus before, probably, at some point, whether on YouTube or in one of your own games when you've had it randomly generated. Galactus is particularly interesting because it's sort of rubbish apart from when it's amazing. And it's amazing when you can get it out cheaper by using something like Wave. In fact, if you can play Galactus in a Death Wave deck, if you can play Galactus into Death or something like that, just to suddenly destroy the other lanes and dominate this one, it's really, really strong. Galactus, I think, genuinely has the potential to be one of the strongest cards in the game. I think that whole decks will form around Galactus. Galactus is extremely strong as well with the Green Goblin. On reveal, your opponent gains control of this, -3 power. And the Hobgoblin as well, which is the same, but -8 power. You know, if you just focus on one of the lanes and play Green Goblin on an early turn, Hobgoblin on turn 5, and then Galactus, which, as long as it's the only card that you have here, destroys the other locations, you could just win by nerfing your opponent's cards. Maybe you can play Hazmat, maybe you can play Scorpion, other things to make your opponent's cards cheaper, or weaker rather. Galactus is going to be strong. There's no two ways around that. It is the card I'm most excited for. I've been excited for this card for such a long time. Valkyrie, on reveal, set all cards at this location to 3 power. Now that's interesting because it says all, and all is in caps. and what that means is that it's pointing to me, it's pointing at me and saying, hey, you're setting your opponent's cards to 3 power as well. So it's a card that really has the potential of weakening your opponent's side. If they're playing lots of big, expensive cards, a Valkyrie can just, decrease the power of those, make them rubbish. If you're playing lots of weaker cards, you can even the odds like that. Valkyrie, again, is going to be really good in Cerebro 3. And generally, I think it's one of those cards where it's either going to be really weak or it's going to be busted with a whole bunch of different cards. Like, it's one of those cards where people are just going to like work out weird things to do with her and drive her insane and make her extremely powerful. I think Valkyrie is going to be great. Is she going to be quite as good as Bast? I don't know. I personally think Bast has slightly more potential to be stronger. Bast, once again, to remind you, on reveal, set the power of all cards in your hand to 3. I think that's better, but Valkyrie is going to be really good when it comes to debuffing the enemies as well. And finally, one last card. Needs to catch my breath. Super-Skrull ongoing has the ongoing effects of all enemy cards. All enemy cards. Not just all enemy cards at this location, but all enemy cards. This is a really interesting counter to Patriot, to Mystique, to Onslaught. And I genuinely think this is going to be potentially even the best tech card in the game. Like, why would you ever want to play Enchantress when you can just play Super-Skrull instead? But then the mad thing is you could start playing ongoing cards that actually hurt your enemy. So you could play Electro, which has the ongoing effect you can only play 1 card per turn. And then the player that played the Super-Skrull also has that weakness. You could play Red Skull, you could play Typhoid Mary, you could play Ebony Maw. Any of these cards that has a negative ongoing effect, if you play those cards, your opponent just won't be able to play Super-Skrull. So it's not going to be like a pure perfect counter to ongoing decks, because some ongoing decks do include cards that have negative abilities, but it's super, super interesting. Anyways, that is it. That is my very quick look at all of the new cards that were just announced today for Series 4 and Series 5 of Marvel Snap. What do you think? What is your favorite card? Let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to go lie down. I'll see you in the next one.